All right. Welcome, everybody. I am Catherine Wallerstein. I'm the Associate Director of the UC Davis Humanities Institute. Welcome to PhD Unlimited. PhD Unlimited is a career development series that launched in 2014. Since the pandemic, we've been mostly online. This mentorship program helps graduate students explore their many options and provides them with resources for how to transition to postgraduate life. This monthly series on graduate careers takes a broad approach to professional development, tailored to the needs of master's and PhD students in the humanities, arts, and humanistic social sciences. All events start at noon. Before I introduce our speaker today and today's topic, I wanted to let you know about our next PhD Unlimited, which will be on May 3rd. And that one is From PhD to UX Researcher, Perspectives from Google and Twitter. So please mark your calendars and stay tuned for more details. So today we are speaking with Teresa Dillinger on exploring career paths using ImaginePhD. ImaginePhD is a free and confidential career exploration and planning tool for the humanities and social sciences, and Teresa will of course tell you much more. In this workshop, you'll be introduced to career paths and opportunities through self-assessment of skills, interests, and values. We'll identify starting points for career exploration, and using these assessments, we'll see how your skills and interests align with particular career paths in the humanities and social sciences. Dr. Teresa Dillinger is director of the GradPathways Institute for Professional Development within Graduate Studies at the University of California, Davis. She has over 20 years of experience in career and professional development advising and is passionate about partnering with graduate students and postdoctoral students to help them achieve their career goals. As director of the GPI, she is involved with a number of initiatives, including co-directing the Professors for the Future program and serving on the leadership team for Leaders for the Future, a program designed to cultivate entrepreneurial thinking in graduate students and postdocs. Dr. Dillinger is also the nationwide project lead for ImaginePhD, an online career exploration and planning platform for humanities and social sciences PhDs. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Teresa.
Thank you, Kathy. Thanks for that kind introduction. It's nice to see everyone here this afternoon. I guess we are officially. Again, my name is Teresa. You're welcome, and my pronouns are she, her. You're welcome to unmute if you want to ask questions or drop them in chat or whatever works for you. And you can turn your camera on or leave it off, also fine. I'm at your service. So what we're going to do in this brief time that we have together is talk about career exploration. But before I do that, it would be really helpful for me to know who's in the room. And you can either drop this in chat or shout out, but could you tell me what program you're in and whether you're a PhD or master's student and what year? So either drop that in chat or shout it out, either one. And I'm going to read them as we go. So Paige is a PhD candidate in political science, 5th year. Denise is MCIP physiology, 5th year. Lindsay is human development, 4th year. Jessica is a PhD candidate, 5th year in Spanish. Teacher Anne, or do you want to go by Annalisa? Either one. 2nd year PhD School of Education, wonderful. And Morgan is Spanish 6th year candidate. And Carla is a sociology PhD, 4th year. And Sudik Shaya is a 3rd year PhD candidate in geography, which was my home department when I was a graduate student here a long time ago. So great. So we really have a mix of folks. Most people are, mid PhD program, I'd say. A couple folks that are newer, which is great. That helps me to know as we talk about ImaginePhD, how we might want to engage with it. But what I want to do this afternoon is first, let me share my screen. Oh, could you enable screen sharing for me, Kathy? I'm going to talk to you about career exploration. We're going to have a chance to do an assessment and to answer questions. And I'm going to talk a little about resources here at UC Davis, because ImaginePhD is an online tool that is really, actually, we have people from 93 different countries using this tool at this point, which surprised me from back in the day when we were developing it. And I'll tell you more about that as soon as I can share my screen, which looks like we're good. Is everybody seeing a slide deck that says ImaginePhD? All right, good. I'm going to broaden my This is always a tricky thing, as you know, about Zoom. Then you suddenly can't see everybody. There we go. That's a little bit better. Okay. So what is ImaginePhD? It's a free online tool. And the reason that we created it was there were similar tools for people in STEM. And I first want to say, for those of you, I think there's one person here who's in STEM, people in STEM use this tool too. So it's no longer just a thing for humanities and social sciences. In fact, a third of our users are in public health and STEM, in engineering and other disciplines. So you're in the right place to use this. And so when we were thinking about what we wanted from this tool, we wanted to serve PhDs and master's students, but we recognized PhD students in particular had specific concerns and needs, particularly in humanities and social sciences. So as someone who's in the social sciences myself, I well remember the career exploration process and going through that. And so when we created this tool, we wanted it to do several things. We wanted it to always be free. So there's no subscription, there's nothing you pay for. We do not have any advertisers. So we don't sell your information to anybody ever. So you can know that. And we wanted it to have careers that were direct paths from the PhD. In other words, not careers that you have to go get some more training for. I mean, all jobs you have to have some training, but that you don't have to get another degree. You don't need to get a law degree or anything like that to just successfully transition into that career. We also wanted to make known that, the whole career planning process, as you're probably discovering, is an iterative process where you are looking at your skills, interests, and values. You're thinking about what works for you, and then making your plans around that. So this is really a starting point. One thing I always say to folks is this is never meant to tell you what career you should be in. Nobody should really ever do that. And certainly nothing online should do that, but it may give you some information that you find helpful. And then it also includes a goal setting application called My Plan. So as you're planning out your career, but also your graduate program, that may be useful to you. So we'll talk a little bit about those things, but a bit more about ImaginePhD. I did not create this alone. I am the project lead, but we had over 80 volunteers work on the project from institutions from across the land and Canada. And these are folks like myself who are passionate about graduate student career and professional development. So it took us a couple of years to build this online tool, but I just wanted to let you know who's behind it. A lot of like-minded people who really care about graduate students. And so I want to first do a little bit of a detour to talk to you about the University of California Office of the President Grad Student Wellbeing Survey report that came out in 2017. Has anybody heard of this report before? You can just do a thumbs up if you have, or a hands up, or well, not hands up, but thumbs up. Yep, and Lisa, Morgan, a couple folks. Okay, so why this was important is we found some very interesting things around careers in this survey, among many other things. There was a lot about well-being, mental health, all of that, but I'm going to just talk about this little piece of it. And that is that respondents in the humanities and social sciences were less likely to be satisfied with their lives than those in STEM and professional fields. Why do you think that might be? You can drop that in chat or unmute if you want to take a guess.
I think I would say just the uncertainty sometimes, because I come from a science background with a master's and a bachelor's, and in the sciences, it definitely seemed to be more kind of like narrow tunnel funnel, like you're going down a direct path and everything is very linear. But I feel as though I'm being in education now, and education and other programs are a little bit more, less linear, a little bit more uncertain in terms of which degrees, or not degrees, but in terms of which career fields you can kind of end up in.
That's great, Annalisa. Yeah, absolutely. That's a component of it. Anybody else want to chime in?
I think there's less jobs for humanities and social science geared individuals. I also think that there's less well-paying jobs, speaking to what Annalisa said about education, right? We all know how teachers are paid in this country. And I think humanistic inquiry, just as far as like ethics and values, pigeonholes us a little bit more as to who we want to work for and who we don't want to work for.
Right. So those are all concerns that are commonly brought up. Certainly it can be, there is less pay. It's less, I think the clarity issue is a big one, that sometimes in some of the biosciences, at least, biotech is very clearly an option. It pays a lot. So there's not a stigma to go into something that pays really well. Kathy, I saw that you joined us a minute ago. Did you have anything that you wanted to mention, or just logging on? No pressure.
I'm have nothing. I'm just logging on to listen. Thank you.
Wonderful. We're glad you're here. Okay, so let's do the big reveal here. Oops, going backwards. So what we found is that just what Annalisa brought up, that life satisfaction is correlated with career prospects. And for many people in the humanities and humanistic social sciences, that wasn't clear. And they weren't necessarily getting from their mentors more clarity around this issue. And also satisfaction with career prospects and mentorship and advising is correlated with being on track to complete the degree. So this is a little bit of a different factoid, but just knowing that if you know where you're going with your career, right, it's easier to be moving forward. And then of course, if you have good mentorship and advising, that's always essential in any graduate program to being on track to complete the degree. So we found these things all were factors that were important. And again, in STEM, sometimes, especially if you're in a lab-based program, even your topic is already something you know you're going to work on, you know where the funding's coming from. It's a little, just the linear path thing that Annalisa mentioned, I think is very good. It is that. So that doesn't always mean better. I want to say that one of the joys is finding a career path that is right for you and realizing it is an iterative process. And I think sometimes people treat it too much like maybe a permanent relationship where they're thinking it has to be just the right one, when in fact, it's something that we take steps over time, right, to discover, and it's a self-discovery process. So the other thing I want to talk about is career diversity. Have people heard this term? Anybody heard about career diversity? Annalisa, you're on mute. Are you saying yes? Looks like, yeah, thumbs up. Okay. So the idea behind career diversity is really this idea that the PhD or the master's prepares you for a broad array of careers. And this notion that there's only academia or there's alt-ac, I think is a very poisonous dichotomy. That's really not the shape of things. And so it is also valuing all those careers. So let me see if I get, yeah. In any path that people choose to take. I was lucky to have a great mentor who really supported any of our career choices. He says, I've had students in all careers. He says, I've had faculty, people go on to be faculty, and I had one woman go on to be a nun. He says, I've equally supported them all. I think it's great wherever people find themselves. So also mobilizing university resources to support professional and career development among grad students, which we do at UC Davis, right? We've got the GradPathways Institute, we've got the Davis Humanities Institute. There's a lot here on our campus that's super supportive, and I'm excited about that. Our Career Center actually serves graduate students and postdocs. It's not just an undergrad serving place. So that is, again, pointing to the value of diverse careers. And then connecting graduate students with employment in all sectors. So not just having the conversation that here's the academic path. Oh, sorry, I don't know anything else about that. That, by the way, is perfectly okay. I'm always saying to faculty, you don't have to know every career path that your student might take, but rather you have to know how to connect them with people who do know, or help them, support them in that endeavor, and of course, value whatever their career choice is. And then finally, communicating the value of the advanced degree to employees and society as a whole. So I think that's something that it may be very implicit to people that a biotech PhD is going to take you this direction, or engineering PhD, but the PhD I often found when I used to work at the Career Center, by the way, I should self-disclose. I used to do the career advising for grad students and postdocs. And what I would often find is engineering grad students or STEM would come in and they would have a sense of their skills, but I would meet with English PhDs or cultural studies PhDs, and they would come in and say to me, I don't have any skills. And I would be horrified because, oh my gosh, yes, you do. And they're huge and important. They're skills other people don't have, that are extremely valuable in a variety of sectors, but they may not be as obvious as, okay, I know how to pipette or do some particular lab technique. So I think a lot of this too is uncovering your transferable skills, which you have in abundance. So that's career diversity. In ImaginePhD, you're going to find there are 16 job families. These are ones that we found people in the humanities and social sciences, and also some in STEM, landed in due to their interests. So we did not do job families by sector, as you're probably used to hearing about industry and government and nonprofit and whatnot, because these kinds of things can, like translation interpretation, can happen in many settings, everything from Google to perhaps a nonprofit or government agency. So these are the 16 that we worked with grad students and postdocs to uncover, and also their mentors. And you'll see that if you're a quick count, you'll see there's actually 15 bubbles on here. It's because the faculty one is actually divided within in teaching intensive and research intensive, because we thought we wanted the nuance of that. So that's a little bit about ImaginePhD. The whole process of career exploration, which we're going to talk about today, is one where I think of it as a wheel where self-assessment's important, and self-assessment can look like many things. We have some tools in this particular online tool, but there are others, right? Where you're thinking about what your interests, your skills and values are, or you're taking the Myers-Briggs type indicator or strengths or any number. There's a lot out there now. And then exploring options, narrowing your options and making a plan. But truly with this wheel, you can jump on anywhere. You can explore options first, self-assess later. You can be making a plan to be in your PhD program and then assess later. But just want to give you kind of the sense of how we in the career world talk about career exploration. Career decision-making. So there is something we think of as the triad: skills, interests, and values. Anybody heard this before? Maybe a thumbs up. No? Anybody? Okay, that's fine. So what we find is people whose skills, interests, and values align tend to be happiest in their careers. And so there's an assessment on ImaginePhD for each of these. The assessments are free. You can take them as many times as you'd like. Today, we're going to do interests, only because I wasn't sure who was going to be in the room today. When I have people who are just starting their PhD program, I often start with values, because the skills part is something you're working on in your PhD program or your master's program. The interests are something that's useful too, but sometimes the values can be approachable. So again, since this group is a little more advanced, I think interest is going to serve us well, because we're going to think about what are we interested in and what job families would meet those interests. So talking about that, we're thinking about what do you spend most of your time on now? What do you prefer to do in your work environment and time? So obviously interest is a very broad bucket, and I am interested in crocheting, but I don't want to do it for work. So interests aren't the same as hobbies all the time. When we're thinking about work interests, we're thinking, what are we really interested in? And I will say that I have always been interested, at least since I started grad school, in academia and the work environment that is academia. So I've stayed here, but not as a professor, but in an academic support role of sorts for grad students and postdocs. And it's been a joy. It's been more than 20 years of just a lot of fun. But when I started my grad program, I was convinced that being a faculty member was the only path, that, that's what was expected of me. And I am so glad. There's a wonderful article that's pretty old now, but it's called Deprogramming from the Academic Cult. So if you ever need an article about how academia can feel like a cult because everybody's telling you, no, you only want to be in a research institution. This is the best, most prestigious job. If you can clear your mind of that and really do a deeper dive into what's important for you, I think you're going to be happier in whatever career you landed. And that may be a tenure track position. That's lovely too. So another thing I often hear in the humanities particularly is this concern around the job market, and I think people are calling it now career precarity. And I think that is, of course, an issue. It is true there are not as many faculty positions as there are PhDs being minted every year. But I will say that this is not a new problem. And in fact, when I was in grad school, everybody was still saying, oh, when all those Cal State people retire, there will be a flood of openings. Nobody told us that they never wanted to retire. They're going to die in their office. They love their job so much, that sort of thing. But anyway, there was not a lot of faculty positions even more than 20 years ago. So this is not a new problem, although it's often framed that way. There are permutations in this problem in terms of there being more adjunct labor. There's no question about that. If you have not seen the book, one thing I highly recommend, let me see if I can find it off my shelf here. It's long, but it's called The New PhD, whoops, by Len Casuto. Yeah, that's not going to work, is it? Anyway, it's called The New PhD. And what it talks about is how we teach graduate students to think there's only one career path, and then we make them profoundly unhappy when they realize there aren't enough jobs for every single one of them in that single career path. But I want to say more than that. We also teach them to overlook some many satisfying other kinds of careers, in which I am in one that is just wonderful. So anyway, I'm hoping this session will help you think broadly about careers and determining what you want. Okay, so we're going to do this interest assessments. We're going to dive right in. So if you have not been to ImaginePhD yet, please go to ImaginePhD.com. I'm just going to type that in, but it's just what it sounds like. And you'll create a profile. And again, we don't sell your information or use it for anything other than like our stats of like how many are in the humanities or these disciplines, that sort of thing. So if you could just take a couple minutes to create a profile, and when you're done, if you could either drop in chat that you're done or thumbs up, but I'll stop talking for a minute so you can concentrate. Yes, Jessica, go ahead and take the interest assessments. Yeah, when you get your, feel free, once you've created, actually, let's do this. Create your profile, this makes more sense, and then take the assessment. And when you're done with the assessment, give me your thumbs up. So you should be able to find the assessments in the top menu. There'll be a section that says assessments, and it'll be a drop-down menu, and you can do the interest one. And so I'm going to give us until, let's see, what do we have here? Till 12:37. How's that for a precise number? It shouldn't take you long to do either. So that's when we'll start talking again. Sorry, I need to say one more thing because I just remembered. It's going to ask you to look at the 10, or rather the 16 job families, and select up to 10 of them that might be of interest. To keep it simple, why don't you just select 2 or 3 that seem interesting? You can always go back and select some more. Okay, I'm seeing a few people are done. Let me know if you could use another minute or two. Done, 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 lots of dones. Okay, so enough people are done. If you're still working away, that's great, keep at it. But I'm gonna talk in the background while you're doing that. So how was that experience of taking the interests assessment? Difficult, easy, learn anything new? Oh, chat, let's see. Oh, just another, oh, sometimes difficult for Lindsay to separate what I'm interested in and what I know I'm skilled in. Yes, absolutely. And since we're just having you take the interests, the skills assessment might be very useful for you. But really the interests and skills are different, right? Because you can be interested in something and develop your skills in that area. So key example, I'm not very great with languages, but I'm taking Spanish because I'm interested in it, but not skilled at it. Yeah, so let's see, other comments? I realized I went back to my pre-grad school career interests. Yes, but that's great. And you might even reflect on how those may have brought you to grad school, because that's certainly an experience I've had too. Jessica says the same. Wonderful. Okay. Was reaffirming. I'm glad. I'm really glad when you find yourself in these assessments and it gives you information. And Siddhistaya said, very detailed, so it was helpful to think about more areas of interest than I imagined. Yes, and I think that's the whole thought behind career exploration, interest, skills, and values is it helps you actually identify these and really think more intentionally about how they work. Yes, Carla, chime in for questions. Happy to answer any you have. And you can do those in chat or unmute, whatever you prefer.
I'll just unmute myself because I guess it's more of a longer question, but I'm kind of thinking through now, I guess my interests have gone back to pre-grad school. And it kind of feels like sometimes the PhD is getting in the way because I had professional experience beforehand and just the way that I've conducted my PhD. I have worked in grad studies. I'm not working for a student center. So kind of have that higher ed experience. And so like I've been looking at jobs and I am already qualified. Like I could quit today and start working at a university tomorrow. But I can't because I want to finish my PhD. So I just feel like some of the jobs that like job families I was connected with, like I already do. Like I'm already running programming and all these things with my GSR. I'm already a consultant. So yeah, I don't like, how do I navigate like almost feeling like the PhD is getting in the way, but I really do want to finish. I'm just wondering like, is it adding that much value to my skills?
And that's an interesting thing because people do PhDs for all kinds of reasons. So I would say if you want to stay in higher ed, that the PhD is going to be immensely valuable to you, because if just the fact that you have it is always going to open more doors for you than not having it. And you can be all but dissertation, and there are people who do that. You can get I don't know if you've heard of the candidate of philosophy, but you can actually get a candidate of philosophy if you don't complete the dissertation itself, but it'll never be quite as powerful as the doctorate and having that under your belt. So again, it depends on what you want to do. And I've had people come in and tell me, you know, I have this great job offer with the state to do X, Y, and Z. It's exactly what I want to do. I don't know that I want to finish. I always say, think long and hard about that to be sure. But yes, if it is, that's the case, then absolutely. But from what you're describing, Carla, you would be someone I would typically talk to about, well, what's the value of the PhD in the line of work you're going into? And I would say it can be very impactful, and it can have, you know, for you, higher salary throughout your career. The prestige parts piece of that, also the knowledge. So I would never say, like, people think about coming in and doing the PhD and it giving them skills they've never had before. For some people, that's absolutely true. And for all of us, it's true, like with technique, right? For methods and the things we learn. But it doesn't mean that, you know, could you get that job without it? In some cases, yes, but you'll advance faster almost always with the PhD. So I don't mean that to be an impassioned plea for you to finish your program, not at all. I just just putting that out there. You're welcome. Okay, so let's move on from the assessment. So I just want to tell you a little bit about how you read the results. So you probably have already seen that it talks about why you would use these results, that you can explore job families and see what other PhDs have pursued, evaluate the tasks you actually enjoy doing, filter the job families. This is why we make, by the way, we make you select 10 or less, because there will inevitably ones that don't interest you. So for example, when I worked at the Career Center, I would have people come in all the time and say, I'm a English PhD, and my faculty are telling me if I don't want to be a faculty member, I can teach K through 12. And I'd say, well, do you like to teach children? And some of them did. I said, that sounds like it could be a fit. And others are like, no, I have no aptitude or interest in that. And I'd say, so that's not a fit. So that wouldn't be a job family you want to select if that's the case. So again, it's helping you with some self-knowledge. And then when you're looking at the results, what you're going to see are a star or what I would call a splat, these green splats. The stars tell you where your alignment, so what we did is we had experts look at each of the skills and interests for each of the job families and determine how important that skill was to be successful in a job family, or how likely that interest would be met being in that job family. So when you see the expert rating, that's what that's about. So it's an algorithm where, for instance, this is translation and interpretation. Public speaking is important. So in this case, for me, I have an alignment, which is shown by a star. I don't speak foreign languages. I wish I did, and I'm trying to learn. So that's a problem. If I'm not interested in it, I actually am, but I kind of game this here to get the result I wanted, which is if I'm not interested in speaking a foreign language or translating it, this is probably not the job family for me, because there's not an alignment there. So that's what you're looking for, is the alignments with your interests as you look at the different job families. You can see it through all 10. I mean, there's no harm in doing that if you're interested. And then just note that there is the full list of interests. You remember you just took the assessment, you did many more than these top 5, but these are the top 5 for each job family is what you're seeing. So that's that. Hopefully you can explore that, take some time to do that a bit later and do the other assessments. And you can sort by your answers or the experts' ratings. So you can see what the experts say are the most important interests for this job family. In this case, these are the top 5. But if you order your answers, you can see where you have interests and where the interest tapers off. And this works the same on the skills assessment. The values assessment is going to look completely different, because values can be met in all kinds of different jobs. So for instance, maybe my value is that I really like working outdoors. Well, that doesn't just map to a particular job family. There's many different ways that might be met. Or maybe I like a fast-paced environment. That can be academia. It could be industry. It could be anything. So the values part is really for your knowledge about what's important to you. And I think being aware of that is very important for any career that you pursue. So again, I explained the misalignments. I'm a little fast there, but let me go backwards. Okay. This is just something to make you think about. As you do the assessments, you'll want to think about what are your top 5 skills, interests, and values. And what I always say to people who are early in their graduate program is, of course, you're building your skills. If you're like Carla and you've come from another career, you may already have these in abundance and you're just honing them further. But for many of us, I'll take, for example, maybe you are interested in a research career, but grant writing is a really important component of that, or a nonprofit career. Well, you may not have built that yet, but that's something that you can work on in graduate school. So that may be a skill that there's not an alignment, but that's just a matter of getting training in that area. But interests usually stay the same, right? So if something doesn't interest you, it might interest you later, but not as likely. And values tend to be those things we acquire over time too. So I want to talk about job family resources, because all 16 job families have the same setup, which is there's a place to explore the kinds of careers, there's professional organizations and how to connect. This particular job family is advocacy that I'm showing you. We have resources on building skills. So if you know, for instance, that you haven't done much advocacy and you want to build a skill in that area, we have resources around that. And then applying, we actually pull jobs in from the Indeed job board. There are other sources of jobs, of course, but you can actually see in real time some jobs that are appropriate to that job family that may or may not interest you, but will give you a sense of what's going on there. Because this workshop is about exploring, I want to talk more about that. Again, this is what I just showed you, but in written form. In the Explore section, we'll talk about this more in just a second. But for the Connect, there are these networks, LinkedIn groups, the building skills. There are something called the Intersect Job Simulations. So we have a colleague who is amazing, who has built out these project-based simulations where you can try something out. So maybe it's writing a white paper for a nonprofit, and you'll get the parameters of what needs to be done. And then you can draft one and actually see what it's like to create a product for that job. And of course, it's not graded or anything like that, but it just allows you to dip your toes in the pool to see what that feels like. And then apply, as I mentioned, not only do we have the jobs, but we also have sample application packets. So if you wonder what it looks like to create a resume instead of a CV, we have job descriptions for jobs that have been analyzed to decode them for you, because often they'll use a term or a phrase that maybe is not clear, and a lot of other resources. So there's a lot in this tool. You may want to look more deeply, but let's talk more about exploring today. Have people heard the term informational interview before? Annalisa's nodding. Jill, thumbs up. So I think it's one of those terms that's a little bit, Paige also, Lindsay. Okay, so lots of folks have. Well, that's great. For those who haven't, it's a term that sounds a little strange. It's like, wait, am I interviewing for a job? No, what you're doing is you're meeting with somebody who's in a career that interests you, and you're interviewing them. And you're asking them questions like, what do you most like about this position? Maybe they have a PhD, and you might say, how do you find value with the PhD? How did it contribute to this work, or does it not? What is a typical day like? What's the environment like here? Is it fast paced, et cetera? Pre-COVID, I always said to people, please try to go and meet with that person in their work environment, because you can get a lot of understanding about a career too if you see the work environment itself and how it really is. That may not be in the cards, with COVID, but you can try. But if you go to our website, we have lists of informational interview questions even that you might want to use. But I think it's super helpful to talk to somebody who's in a career that interests you and find out, is this really what I think it is? How many of us probably should have done that before we went to grad school if we thought we wanted an academic career, right? To really find out what is it they do besides the life of being a professor and the life of the mind. Yeah. And for that matter, with academic careers, it's completely different, as you probably do know, between a community college career, a Cal State career, UC, a liberal arts institution, a private place like Stanford. These are all completely different careers, although they're all academic careers, right? They're all faculty careers. So I would say whatever path you're going to select, whether that be an academic career or a career in nonprofits or government or what have you, you'll want to talk to people who are in those careers and get a sense of what is it like? And will it align with your values and your interests and the skills that you have? And since you're still in grad school, this is the time to ask the question, what would you recommend if this is a job you love and you're talking to that person? What skills would I need for this job? What do you recommend that I do to acquire those? And of course, if they have not been in a PhD program, you may need to explain to them a little bit what that is, because I think people are often shocked that you do this treatise, this dissertation, which is sometimes hundreds of pages, that you do a qualifying exam, in front of 5 people, that you teach, courses, you do research. So very many folks don't even know what the PhD involves. They just think it's like another step after the bachelor's degree. So that's something where you're a bit of an ambassador for your degree too, and letting them know. Other things that are in the Explore section, there are PhD profiles. So we have interviewed people who have a PhD who are working in that particular job family. And I'll tell you more. We have some of them that are Q&As where it's, someone asks a question. It's sort of like an informational interview that's been printed out. As I mentioned, we have job descriptions for those job families and the job simulations that you can try out. So the other thing I want to mention is, well, before I do, any questions about that? Any questions about the assessment, about the alignment, misalignment, the process of exploration? Anybody have trouble imagining who they would even ask to do an informational interview with? If you do wonder, sometimes you can literally look people up online or on LinkedIn. You can find formal, let's see. Yeah. Oh, Kathy. Okay. Just looking at chat. You can look at LinkedIn and see people. You might just sort out by your PhD program in LinkedIn and see who else has done the PhD or the master's or whatever else, and connect with them as a alum and say, I'd really love to hear more about your career. I'm also in that program and your job looks interesting to me. But if you don't know people, other sources, the Internship and Career Center, again, they have people that work specifically with grad students and they may be able to connect you. Your faculty mentors, not all of their students are in one type of career. There'll be ones in academia, there'll be ones in nonprofit, in K through 12. So they may have ideas for you too. And then your fellow grad students, quite honestly, some of the best advice I got was sitting in my office with my fellow grad students and asking them questions. So you probably have the same experience if you're able to do that. I know COVID has made that a little harder, but yeah, so those are all opportunities. Kathy, did you want to chime in?
Well, no, there was a raised hand.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That just disappeared.
Oh, Morgan?
Morgan, there we go.
Yeah, Morgan, chime in.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that maybe was something that this program would consider in the future, incorporating these informational interviews into the actual platform itself. Because as I know that this has probably been shared with you by plenty of graduate students, but this whole process of looking for a job is a job in and of itself. And so it's hard not to feel like you're wasting time, and seeking out the resources is also really difficult when you're navigating so many resources. So I was just curious whether or not that would be something in the future that might be accessible on this platform.
That's a great question, Morgan. So that's why we did the Q&A in each of the job families, because it works like an informational interview, but it's one-sided, right? So you're just reading it. That's good. That'll give you information. But one of the other values of the informational interview is actually talking to a person and making a connection. So there's not a substitute for that. I think maybe what I'm understanding from what you're asking is like if we had some sort of mentor platform or matchmaking platform in that way. And I don't think that's in the cards at this time just because of the sheer number of people we'd have to engage with. But maybe in the future. But I would say that's the other thing I want to mention about informational interviews is this is your opportunity to talk with somebody. And you've probably heard this term invisible job market, and it really is true that when people start to talk to you and hear what your skills are, interests are, sometimes things just arise, right? Like they may want you to consult for them, or they may actually have a job. The way that I started at UC Davis in this career was totally happenstance. I was in the Postdoc Association. I went to the Career Center to ask them about what offerings they had for postdocs. I was kind of leading the advocacy charge. And they said to me, you know what, we're just about to post a position that's half-time. It's not, a permanent position, but given your interest in grad students and postdocs, you should apply for it. And I did. And I interviewed for it against other folks and they hired me. That was literally the start of my career. And it only came about because I went and talked to somebody. So I think that's a very powerful thing. And even if you end up deciding this isn't the job I want, you now have a contact that's sort of a mentor for you, and you can let them know, as you go through your career, you can do this or not. Like usually a thank you is sufficient, but if it is a career you're interested in, you still got a number of years in your PhD program, you might just periodically check in with them and say, your conversation with me was really impactful and made me excited about this career. And I just want to let you know, I'm about to take my qualifying exam. You've given me, some wind in the sails, to keep moving forward. And then when you finish, just say, I just finished my doctorate. I wanted to let you know that your advice was very helpful to me. And so it's not asking for a job. It's not anything like that, but good things come about, honestly, when you connect with folks. So that's my most, I think, important piece of advice. Let's see. So any other questions about informational interviews, connecting with people? So as mentioned, it's iterative process. So to Morgan's point, the other thing I want to touch on that is, so often we think we just wait until we're post-quals to start having these conversations because it doesn't seem like there's much point right before then, but there is, because think of it as a research project, because that's what it is. It's a research project for what you want to do. And so the more you can start to do the assessments, you might want to take them again multiple times and connect with people, the clearer you'll be about what you want to do. And going back to my first slide in job satisfaction or life satisfaction, people who are clearer about what they want to do and see something on the horizon tend to finish sooner and also tend to feel like they know the purpose of finishing and moving forward. My colleagues who finished the quickest were ones that actually had a job offer in hand before they left the program. And they were like, oh my gosh, if I don't finish this dissertation now, I'll never finish it. And I want this job. So it also can give your faculty mentors some incentive to read quicker, to move you along. So anyway, just some thoughts around that. Make a plan. I want to just mention that, oops, I need to go in the right direction with my clicking. Yes, so there is a My Plan feature in ImaginePhD that'll help you develop specific goals. And as you know, writing the dissertation is a goal, but it is so huge that you know you need to break it down. That's true with so many things. So you might want to think about the types of goals. Within ImaginePhD, there is this worksheet where you can just download it. It talks about degree completion goals, skills development, personal goals, career development, all of that. But it can kind of help you think about, when am I going to do these things? We talk about creating SMART goals. I don't know if people have heard this term before, but essentially it is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound is the quick way of going through that. But the time-bound part, oops, I am going the wrong direction with this. The time-bound part is probably the most important. And so when you use My Plan, you can actually create things. It's like a calendar. You can create your events and when you want to have them done. And it's a 7-year tool. So you actually can plan out very far into the future and think about when your qualifying exam is going to be, when you need to get your first chapter in, maybe you're going to take a workshop on lit reviews, whatever that may be. So highly recommend that. It'll even send you reminders if you enable it. It'll email you saying and nag you. So that can be helpful. You'll also see in ImaginePhD profile and results, it will store for you your top 5 interests, your top 5 skills, your key work values, and let you know when you last took your assessments. And again, you can take up to 3 before it starts erasing the old ones. So there's always the most recent 3 that are available for you. And then also your saved job families, and you can view your plan. So lots of stuff there, but I want to talk about what's available at UC Davis in the 5 minutes that I have left. So I'm going to go through kind of quickly. As mentioned, I'm the director of the GradPathways Institute for Professional Development, and that's a mouthful. That's to say, we have a lot of resources for you that are based on these 8 core competencies. And I will not say that David Blanche is my colleague, who's the assistant director. We did not do all the programming for this. We work across campus with our partners, like the University Writing Program is our writing and publishing competency. The Career Center does most of the career management piece. Teaching and mentoring is the Center for Educational Effectiveness, and also our own mentoring initiatives. So there's a lot available there. So all of these have the same structure, which is we have workshops, programs, one-on-one advising, and community building activities. And now that we're in the Graduate Center, which is what you're seeing behind me, have people been here yet? Anybody been to the Grad Center? Few nods. Okay, this is your yay, because this is, it's taken us 20 years to get this center built. And it is yours. You're the first class that actually gets to use it. And I just encourage you to make it your home. And we are going to hold most of our programming here. So a little bit more about this. I'm just taking the career management competency as an example of what I just told you. So we have workshops. This is the introductory part. We have one-on-one advising with ICC counselors for grad students and postdocs. We have a course called Designing Your Professional Life, which the Career Center teaches, but it's an awesome course because it helps you think about your professional life from a design perspective. And it'll be offered again, I believe, in the fall, if you're interested. So it's a 2-unit satisfactory, unsatisfactory grading, and I think a great opportunity. And then we have a lot of cohort-based programs. So Professors for the Future, which is our academic track. But again, I have people in this program that go on to do all kinds of careers, and they use it as a leadership development program. Perfect. Leaders for the Future is more about business and entrepreneurship. There's a brand new program called Public Scholars for the Future. So if you do work that is outward facing and public scholarship, this is a new program that might be of interest to you. There is a faculty internship program for Los Rios, the Los Rios district, and it's focused on diversity, but it takes all kinds of folks, so you can apply for that. And then I understand from Kathy, the Mellon Public Scholars is going to become Kathy, what did you call it again? It's still gonna be
Graduate Public Scholars.
Graduate Public Scholars. So it's going to transition off of the Mellon funding, but maintain its focus on public scholarships. So these are all things you can do here at UC Davis, which is just amazing. And then Counseling Services runs a career exploration group that's only for grad students, where you can also do career assessments. And then I just wanted to finally mention, we have a new micro-credential program, and all this is not a new degree program. This is a way of bundling our workshops and activities so that you know what's in the pathway for a particular skill. So for example, next week we're working with the Ombuds office, and they offer conflict competence training. And I just highly recommend it, because whatever career you go into, you will have to navigate those waters, have those conversations. And these, whether that be as a faculty member, think about sitting in faculty meetings, or in industry, or whatever the case may be. These are skills that are just really useful for you throughout your life. So there's also foundations in teaching, global leadership. You can read the list, but anyway, we have a lot forthcoming, again, all free to you, and hopefully a value. And we're always looking for new ideas, so feel free to reach out about that. I mentioned Walker Hall, so hopefully you're going to be here. And then please feel free to contact me. I am happy to have these conversations. I know at the moment the Career Center advisor just left that position, and they're hiring a new one. So her supervisor is available to talk, but I'm also happy to chat with you and happy to answer any questions.
Teresa, thank you so much.
You are welcome. And I'm going to drop my email into chat in case that's easier for folks.
All right, does anybody have any, it's 1 o'clock, but we could probably take a question or two if Teresa can stay on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for those of you, hang on, let me get everybody here. For those of you that do need to leave, though, I just wanted to remind you that our next PhD Unlimited is on May 5th, or May 3rd, sorry. And that would, again, is from PhD to user experience researcher, UX researcher. And during that session, you will hear from 2 people who got their PhDs, one in sociology, one in history, who then went on to be UX researchers at Google and at Twitter. So that should be also quite interesting.
Great. Well, thank you all. It's been a pleasure to meet you and talk with you, and hopefully in a room someday in person.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you all for coming.
Bye.
Bye-bye.